Welcome to Empowering Plans, a show dedicated to identifying waste and undue expense in the health benefits industry, discovering ways to maximize benefits while minimizing costs, and empowering employers, administrators, and consultants to emphasize, once again, the benefit in benefit plan. Today's episode is brought to you by the Phia Group, empowering plans since 1999. Now here are your hosts, the Phia Group's own CEO, Adam Russo, and Senior Vice President and General Counsel, Ron Peck.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Empowering Plans with the Phia Group. I am your co-host, Adam Russo, the CEO and co-founder of the Phia Group, and with me, as always, is the best attorney that I know. I don't know that many attorneys, but he's the best one that I know. Oh, sorry, there's another attorney in here too, Ron.
In the room.
Well, Ron, you are better than Brady, so I'm going to say it. Ron Peck. Say hello, Ron.
Hello, Ron.
Ron, as everyone knows, is our Senior VP and General Counsel here at the Phia Group. He's been a great friend, a great colleague for over a decade with me. I can't believe that we've lasted this long together. It's almost like my marriage, which has also lasted 10 years. So I'm impressed by both accomplishments, to be honest with you.
Beating all the odds, Adam.
In addition, we brought our guest speaker, our guest co-host, Brady Bizarro, an attorney here at the Phia Group as well. Say hello, Brady.
Hello, Brady.
And if you all know why Brady's here, it's because we're going to talk about healthcare reform. We all know how much you love talking about it. We're going to talk about repeal and replace. We're going to have the update for you. We're going to get into all that. But a couple things first. I want everyone to know we have our next webinar on August 22nd at 1 o'clock Eastern Time. It is going to be on horror stories. We're going to talk about real-life scenarios that Brady, Ron, and myself, and all the other fine attorneys here at Phia have dealt with over the past month. That's how many crazy stories we have. We're going to talk about here's what the issue was, here's how we potentially resolved it or potentially couldn't resolve it, and then how you can make sure that that never happens again. It's a little preamble to Halloween a couple months early. Folks, I am glad to be back from vacation. I was with my wife and my 4 kids and my mother-in-law and my sister and my cousin and my uncle and my aunts. I was begging to come back to work to see that beautiful face of yours, Ron. That's all I can tell you.
Well, I feel like you could have just invited me, Adam.
You know, if I invited you, it would have just been a very weird mix. I would have been happy to see you and then so sad to see everybody else. It would have been horrifying.
I'll take it.
But hey, for everyone to know, we got a great request last month from an avid follower who said to us, you know, why don't you guys ever take any fan mail? How come you guys don't ask the audience or the listeners out there of what are their questions? What are their concerns? And quite frankly, I think it's because Ron never cared about what the audience actually thought. Ron?
I only want to hear my own thoughts.
But we figured, you know what? It makes a lot of sense. You're listening. We should probably listen to what you have to say. So going forward, if any of you out there have any questions or you just want to comment, you want to talk about how great we are or how horrible we are or how it pains you to have to listen to us, please send an email to social media. That is socialmedia@phiagroup.com. And we will do our best to include your question or comment live on the air with us. All right, so before I get into Brady, really quick, I just want everyone to know we had some great news yesterday. Ron, our results over the first 6 months on our Phia Group self-funded healthcare plan. What do you think?
The only metric that matters, Adam, what are we spending on health benefits at the Phia Group?
Like, think about it, folks. We're sitting here telling you every single day, every week, every month on the podcast, webinars. We're out there waving the self-funded flag. Imagine if everything we're doing cost double what it would normally cost if we literally did nothing. That probably wouldn't be a good thing. So the results are out. If you don't believe us, I will send you proof. Can we do that, Ron? Can we actually send proof out to people if they don't believe our numbers?
Who wouldn't believe us?
That's my assumption. Here's what the actual cost is. Our Phia actual cost per employee in our self-funded employee benefit plan. Remember, we do not have a skinny plan. We do not have a preventive only care plan. We have the I don't want to call it a Cadillac plan. It's a Ferrari plan, Ron.
It is.
Our cost per employee per year, $5,858.11. Now, for those of you out there saying, is that good or bad? Great question. The normal cost per employee in this region, meaning Massachusetts, Eastern Massachusetts, is double that number, $11,858. The normal cost per employee, based on the size of our organization, being under 200 employees, is $10,439. Again, we are about 40% lower than that. and the normal cost per employee in our industry. What is our industry? Not the self-funded industry. I think they mean consulting industry. Is $10,871. So across all measures, we are beating the benchmark by at least 40% and in some cases up to 50% over the overall cost based on our employee cost. Ron?
Adam, a couple additional points I need to bring up. One, many of our benefits come at a low or no copay. We have low or no deductible. So all of those expenses that the plan is covering, those averages you're talking about, those are plans with copays and with deductibles, and yet we're still beating them despite the fact that we're covering those copays and deductibles. Additionally, it's important to note that the number of pregnancies and deliveries that we had at the company way exceeds the average.
Everyone's getting knocked up here at Phia.
We're a beautiful, intelligent group of people who wouldn't want to procreate. So at the end of the day, when you look at our numbers, it's not just apples to apples. Our apples include numerous pregnancies, covering the copays and covering the deductibles, and we still came in at 50% of the average.
If anybody out there wants to know how we're doing it, as always, feel free to email us directly. We'll tell you what the key is, and the key is incentivizing your members to care about the overall cost of care. That is the number one thing. Every employee here knows that every dollar they save, they get a piece of that back in their pocket. More importantly, our employees understand one thing, which is very important. They realize that the employer-based self-funded plan that we have at Phia is not just funded by the Phia Group company itself. It's funded by the actual employees and the money coming out of their wallets every single day. That is the key. So, again, we're really proud of what we've done so far in the first 6 months. We're actually trending downward. Again, our costs are 5% right at this point, 5% lower than what they were at this point last year, 8% lower what they were at this point 2 years ago. So when you see the national trends, 8, 10, 15, 20% increases in premiums, ours are going down 5 and 8% over the past 2 years. All right, enough of patting ourselves in the back, Ron, right?
I don't know. I'm enjoying it.
Let's just get right into it. Brady, what in the world is going on in D.C. other than, the Russia talk and, Trump Jr. and whether Ivanka should be there, all that fun stuff. Let's get into the true political piece of it as it relates to healthcare. What's going on?
So thanks, Adam. So I wish that Congress could say that they've been a fraction of a percentage as successful as Phia has been in moving forward and dealing with healthcare costs, but they haven't been. What has happened, though, last Thursday, while most people were probably watching a Sox game or watching their favorite Netflix series, I had my eyes glued to C-SPAN for most of the night, watching what was actually one of the most dramatic events that happened in Congress.
Just so everyone knows, right now, Ron is laughing. Ron is covering his mouth laughing that he is. I think it's because you said you were watching the Red Sox.
I think Ron was watching, too.
Ron was watching the Mets. But Ron definitely was not watching C-SPAN with his little child. I'm assuming.
DC is a mess. Let's talk about New York Mets.
Okay, so go ahead, Brady. Sorry about that.
You should have seen the ratings for C-SPAN. So essentially what happened here on Thursday into Friday morning is not just the failure of one healthcare bill, but really the failure of 4 healthcare bills. It was the Senate Majority Leader's attempt to pass something to get repeal and replace this promise, this 7-year quest that Republicans had that they made to their constituents that they would finally get rid of Obamacare. You had the president watching. You had the vice president appearing on the Senate floor to cast what he thought would be the tie-breaking vote. You had a couple senators, which we were watching, that we thought would vote no. Susan Collins from Maine, Lisa Murkowski from Alaska. Both of them were concerned about cuts to Medicaid. And then there was that one last vote, which the Republicans could not afford to lose, and John McCain ended up casting that no vote. And so if you were watching the events on the floor like I was, you would see that the vice president was talking to McCain. He looked pretty concerned. They went in a room in the back called the cloak room where the reporters aren't allowed. And you could, I guess what happened is some shouting and some more talking. The president
Wait, did they
himself,
actually show this live on C-SPAN?
They did.
I might tune in.
They did. It's a dramatic moment. And you probably saw, and I bet most of our listeners saw the excerpt, the piece of the clip where McCain comes to the front of the Senate and gives the thumbs down and sort of says no because at that moment, healthcare reform was dead.
You mean the gladiator moment?
It was a gladiator moment.
Yep.
It was. It really was. I mean, at that point, the roll call was going on. McCain already had voted no. You could see the majority leader saying, you can still change your vote. The vote's open. And he comes to the front and just dramatically says no. And the Democrats sort of cheer. And it was a big moment in the Senate because you don't often see a defeat like that happen. If they don't have the votes ahead of time, they usually don't have the vote at all.
So here's my comment on that. You just said the Democrats were cheering. That's the problem. They're cheering because they're saying that solution that you have is horrible. We're happy it didn't pass. But they're not actually doing anything about their own problem, which is Obamacare. It's like, let's just keep that train wreck going.
If I could jump in for 1 second, and we'll get back to some of the details of what's going on. But, Adam, you bring up a really good point, and I think in a lot of ways that actually plays to Donald Trump's favor, not against, because if you look at this from the president's perspective, look where he is right now. Because the vote failed, if people are unhappy with the status quo, he can point the finger at Congress and say, I tried, it's their fault. If Obamacare does collapse in on itself, which he's predicted will happen, who knows if it actually will, but if it does, then he can say, you see, I told you this was going to happen, and the result will be a void, a vacuum, and there's nothing to replace it. Suddenly, lawmakers will be scrambling to come up with a solution, and he can say, you see, if you had taken care of this sooner, this wouldn't be happening now. So again, he can point the finger at somebody else. So ultimately, whatever ends up happening here as a result of this, the fact that you say the Democrats are not working on a better solution, that would be the one scenario that would work to his favor, and they're not doing it.
All right, so Brady, our listeners are self-funded employers, administrators, right? Experts in the industry. Tell them, how does this affect them and what's going to happen?
Well, it affects them because it means that for the foreseeable future, the Affordable Care Act is the law of the land. And the best thing we have now to rely on as far as guidance for what's going to happen in the administration, at least in the short term, is that executive order that Trump signed literally within hours of being sworn in back in January, which directed agencies essentially to loosen the reins and to not enforce parts of the ACA which were deemed to be too burdensome. So the question now is, what about the mandates? What about the employer mandate, the individual mandate? What about offering care that meets minimum value? Will the administration enforce penalties against employers and insurance companies who don't meet the detailed requirements of the ACA? We're not sure about that. The president tweeted out a number of things, but one of which was a challenge, in fact, maybe even a threat to Congress, saying if you don't get this together and fix this, he's going to go after their own health care, because members of Congress, unlike the rest of us, actually get a premium and a subsidy paid for by the government for their own health care. And so I do actually think we're going to see movement going forward. I don't think repeal and replace is dead. You would have thought so at 1:30 in the morning on Friday, but I think it's going to go on. It looks like what's happening now is you have a couple senators. One is Lamar Alexander. He is the chair of the Health and Pension Education Committee in the Senate, along with a minority member, Patty Murray. They've been coming together to say, hey, we can't get this done, obviously, and the whole thing can't get done now, repeal and replace, but we've got to stabilize the insurance markets. So I think we should expect to see that there will be some short-term action in Congress that tries to stabilize the insurance markets, because the truth is, those 5% of Americans or so, the 18 million or so people who get their insurance on the exchanges, they're suffering, right? The markets are collapsing, insurers are pulling out, and so I think you'll see action on that front. But for our industry, with regard to, the mandates and the coverage requirements, I think that's unknown yet. We don't know. Trump has not said whether he's going to enforce those requirements and whether he's actually going to keep the subsidies in place even. So we're really not sure on that.
So do we expect 2018 summary plan document changes?
Not based on what's happened in Congress. No, everything should stay the same on that level. And we're not sure, and that's the key here, we're not sure the enforcement level by the executive branch on those points.
Secondly, do we see any issues relating to the employer-based healthcare system as a whole?
I think it still looks strong. I mean, even the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office projections for these previous bills, I mean, you could see that the people that were hurt most by potential changes, were those who did not get employer-sponsored health insurance. So I still expect that industry to stay strong. I still think, it'd be better for us, in fact, if the regulations were loosened and we had more flexibility. I think we're moving in that direction, whether we want to or not.
So this seems like a really good time to actually bring into the mix the first ever Phia fan mail Q&A question of the week. This was actually sent to us by someone who didn't even realize we were going to read this out loud on the podcast. So you know who you are. I apologize. For those of you who send us questions in the future, again, social media at PhiaGroup.com. If you want your name to be mentioned, let us know. Otherwise, we'll keep it anonymous. For today's question is actually from a broker located here in the Northeast. And he asks, Phia, I can't keep track of what's going on with healthcare reform right now. I think no one can other than Brady, right? But it seems like Obamacare is surviving. Do you think that the Republicans, or anyone else for that matter, Adam, to your point about the Democrats, will be trying to fix what Obamacare missed, like addressing hospital bills, basically putting lipstick on this pig. Thoughts?
So I don't think so. I think that gets to the problem. We've been asking this question throughout this whole process, which is who's going to address the cost of care. The ACA was primarily addressed at fixing two of the three big parts of healthcare, right? Access and, in theory, quality and price. Those are the three. But what really happened was access was the only one that was addressed. It was about getting everyone health insurance and not so much worrying about the cost of care. And even when these bills in the House and the Senate, what was the biggest criticism of both Republicans and in some cases and Democrats, right? It was, look, we still have people uninsured. People are going to lose their health insurance coverage. Medicaid is going to be rolled back. All this was about making sure people had health insurance. But no one was addressing the problem of when you have health insurance, what if you can't use it? What if your deductible is too high? And you heard that addressed on the campaign trail, frankly, a year and a half ago. But in Congress, that's not what's being addressed. It's much more politically sexy in a way to try to get everyone covered and say we have, in Massachusetts, we have 98% people covered. But that's not addressing the cost of care. And I'm not seeing anything happening to do that.
And the CBO even, you remember not just once but twice when the CBO would report on the proposed replacement, every time that benchmark that they were using is number of people who are going to get insurance, number of people who are going to lose insurance, never really addressing the actual cost.
Yep.
Hey, I'm starting to think that we might need Brady to keep coming back. I'm a little disappointed, Ron. I mean, as long as this Obamacare, Trump care issue is on the table, people are going to keep on wanting Brady to come back. So there comes a point in time where he's no longer a guest. He sort of just moves in. And I'm getting a little nervous. I see he has a little bed over here, his little twin-size bed in this podcast room, and I'm feeling like he's never going to leave.
You hear that, ladies and gentlemen of the Congress, of the Senate? Here is your call to action. If you don't get this fixed and finalized, Brady will continue to appear on the podcast. So for your benefit and the benefit of everyone else listening, get Brady off the mic, get healthcare fixed today.
What a better incentive than that? I can't think of one.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. We hope you all enjoyed another episode of Empowering Plans with the Phia Group. On behalf of Brady, Ron, and myself, I want to thank you so much for dialing in. Please come to our website at www.phiagroup.com to learn everything you can about the self-funded industry and how we help lower the overall cost of healthcare, which is something that we have been doing since 1999.
And Adam, if I may, a big shout out to our producer. He's been here since day one. He's the man behind the scenes who makes this podcast sound as good as it does. Our producer, Pat Santos, if I may.
Perfect. Thank you all. Have a great day.